What is the special meaning of Talmidah? You can have kashas all over the place. You go into marketplace, you say something, you have many kashas. Talmidah means they are Talmidim. It means that they are trying to learn from you. And their question is to learn from you, not to refute what you have to say. And that opens up, by the Rav, opens up new resources. Baruch, can you hear me now? Oh, yes, it does.
Yes, I can hear you. I'm trying to stay on mute so I don't...
okay, because it's a shul, it's noisy, and it's Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just establish.
As long as you ask me, I can hear. Let me ask you again. Maybe this is already passed because it goes back from the last week. But just to understand at least what you're aiming at, the Mishalim of the when we spoke about the Shimu, the discussion regarding daylight and light and Neshama and Emunah, these were all attempts to connect with what's going on with the Shimu. Is that correct?
Right. And
part of that same discussion.
Right. And I want to, as we have gone through, we have really struggled several days on this issue, on this point. And some of us expressed confusion. You have so many Mishorim, but this one it doesn't jive with this one. Just want to point out an important principle, which we spoke under different circumstances. And I will kind of go off on the topic a little bit to go to the base and go up further. We mentioned many times, the Emunah says that that an infant, to develop the intelligence to be able to call father, mother, and we explained that calling father, mother, of course the father and mother are there because they give him the body, so there's no question. We're talking father, mother to realize, to have a sense that this is a father and this is a mother. This is very intellectual status. He cannot have that level of intelligence until yitim tam dogon, until he tastes the taste of dogon, of grain. So we discussed it many times. The grain does not give him the intelligence. But then, what is the relationship? Everything in our world, okay? There's a neshama and there's the goof. And we know the neshama through the brain, through the goof, through a physical entity. What is the physical entity of the brain, no matter how sensitive, have to do with neshama? They're not in two different worlds, in the two different realms. Neshama is godly. And the goof is physical, is worldly. How does it in fact occur that there is this kind of interaction and there is intelligence in our brain? And the answer is there's what's called a trigger. A trigger is an experience that makes one think of something beyond his immediate mitzias. So let's examine the Gemara. Yitim tam dogon. He's tasting the taste of dogon. The Gemara doesn't say that he ate a piece of dogon and the food has given him intelligence. The food is not. This is tam. Tam, taste, is in the physical world. It's a spiritual thing. There is tam, there is reyach is even higher. But in the physical realm, it's a spiritual element. And then tam dogon per se is a unique type of tam because it does not have any extremities. It's not sweet, it's not sour, it's not salted. It's some kind of a tam that gives you a wholesome sense of the food. That's what Togan is. That's why bread is so fundamental to a person's health, even in emotional and intellectual health, because it gives him a sense of a wholesome reality. So he has tam dogan. As long as he tastes milk and he tastes sugar and it doesn't give him a sense of intelligence. This is all emotional. This is a tam that relates directly to the intelligence. Intelligence means I'm sensing a truth which has nothing to do with me. It's just true because it's true. And this is the relationship tam dogan. Now the tam dogan itself is not intelligence, but it triggers intelligence. In order to appreciate tam dogan, it triggers, it awakens in our neshama the element of intelligence. And since we are tasting it physically, therefore it triggers in our brain a sense of intelligence. And it makes our brain open to receive intelligence from the neshama. And then, of course, we continue to develop that on the basis of that, and we develop a whole intellectual human being, intelligent human being. The same is true regarding all of these mashalim. The phenomenal gift, phenomenal miracle, and gift of goodness that the Rebbe has given us is that He created a huge world. But it's not just a world that is just world. The world, it says that Malchus Diyara came Malchus Dekiya. The famous story with Alte Rebbe, that everything the Rekiya is reflected in the world. The world is structured in reflecting the way things are lamayla. It should be Yarech Ganzen. What's doing over there, Lifnei HaTzimtzum, after the Tzimtzum, it was doing in the neshama with the brain and so forth. Should be Yarech. But it's a trigger. It's a reflection. The reason it's structured here like this is because this is how it is in life. The Alte Rebbe says that the nefesh olikis has 10 koiches. Why does it have 10 koiches? Because it is derivative of this spheres l'mayla, of the spheres l'mayla. And it actually reflects the spheres l'mayla. It should be Yarech, but it reflects it. And what is the purpose of that? Thereby we are able to understand the way things are l'mayla. Thereby we are able to understand the way things are l'mayla. Because ultimately, everything we know about our nefesh, everything that we know about ourselves, leads us nowhere. What is the purpose of all that? What is the ultimate result of that? The result of this is that this gives it as a possibility to understand the way things are l'mayla and to relate to things that are l'mayla. Because the real chayas of the world, real chayas of the individual, comes from the Eibusher. But the Eibusher we don't see, and we don't touch. So these are things which trigger our realization that yes, I can relate to something I don't see and I don't touch. And I can really understand it. And that awakens and reveals in our nefesh an inyan that's what you said, Emunah. Emunah is a phenomenal thing. I have Emunah, I can make sense of it, but I stick with it. And in the whole discussion with Emunah, I could say I failed or I didn't fail. I missed a certain important point. The Alte Rebbe explains in Chinuch Kotten, that's the introduction to Shar Yichud V'Emunah. Shar Yichud V'Emunah is a several prokim in Alte Rebbe's writings where he explains the principle of Yichud Hashem, of the Achdus Hashem, of the unity of Hashem. We all know that the unity of Hashem cannot be explained but on the basis of something higher, of our realization of something higher than Seichel. because unity of Hashem can't be understood. This is why the Alte Rebbe says the introduction to the whole thing is Emunah. How do you get Emunah? If I'm giving you sheyitgaleh Emunah, but how do you get the principle of Emunah? So the Alte Rebbe explains a very important principle. As the Pasuk says, that even a tzaddik, a person, individual, reached the madrega of a tzaddik, is still liable to fall off that madrega. Now, if he's liable to fall off that madrega, it's not Emunah. Emunah means it's steadfast. It doesn't vary. Tzaddik will come. A tzaddik can also fall off the madrega. If he can fall off, where is the steadfast? So he explains. The Emunah, it's a phenomenal thing. You have to reflect on what he says. The tzaddik means he reached the madrega of a tzaddik. How does one reach the madrega of a tzaddik? He went through the whole process. As the Alte Rebbe says, he eliminated the whole evil inclination. And he went into understanding in his seichel to the deepest inyanim, the finest inyanim. And all the koiches atzmi really labored on it until he reached madrega of a tzaddik. And yet, he can fall off. Where then is his steadfast element? The steadfast element is from the chinuch that he received from his mother in the cradle. Essentially what the Alte Rebbe says. Make sense of it. He was an infant, and he got from his mother, and he learned Torah, the deepest inyanim from the Hava. And this stays with him and this doesn't. On the contrary, this is the basis for everything else. The explanation for this, what is behind the scene that the chinuch that he got from his mother in the cradle? Like we said during the discussion, we said that in Rav Talmud, there's a certain things that the Rav imparts to the Talmud, and that becomes the Talmud's pnimius. But it's chitzonius. How can it become pnimius? It says it's chitzonius to Rav. He can only impart chitzonius. How did it become pnimius? Do you understand the question? It's a very meaningful question. Pnimius means that this is an inherent reality. Chitzonius means that it's a reality that needs support, that needs verification. How did chitzonius become pnimius? The answer is that he received it from his Rav. And in his Rav, he senses that the Rav knows it on an inception level. Therefore, he takes it way beyond what he understands. He relates to the fact that the Rav gave it to him. That is the substance, the essential substance. And then there is what he understands of it. That becomes pnimius by him. The Rav can only give me chitzonius. But the most important thing is that it's not what he gets, but where he gets it from. And then, like we learn later, we mentioned many times, the Gemara says, he saw the face of Rebbe said, saw Rebbe Meir, but as he gave the ship, that put him into a different category. Because that put him, that gave him the sense of this pnimius reality, even though he didn't give it to him. But he sensed his pnimius behind this chitzonius. That gives him a completely different perspective. And this is what happens in we talk about Emunah as a child. It's a child getting from his mommy. But this which you get from his mommy, this is not what she's telling him. It is my mommy telling you, mommy, this is the reality itself. And since this is the reality itself, this is not something that can be questioned. It's not I trust my mommy. This is it. What the mommy says, that is it. Therefore, this gives him an Emunah element, a sense of a primary reality.
Does it trigger? The calm dog on it?
Yes, this is the trigger to the koyach Emunah that is in his nefesh. And I want to point out this. I was confronted with this question before. We come. One time I was saying that the Alte Rebbe says that the Emunah that its mother gives him the child, and she says Moida'ani with him, and she says Torah Tziva, and she says Torah is about Tzchira. So somebody pipes up and says, rightfully, listen, in my crib, you know what they're saying to me? 3 little pigs.
Yeah.
How do I get this? So here is a very important point. I explained it, and then I gave a different answer, but here's a very important point. We all know that the primary importance, of supreme importance in a human being is the health of his youth, of his upbringing. Why is it so important? It depends what he's teaching him. Like if he sings to him Torah Tziva, he sings to him something else. Not so. Sure, it makes a difference. But there is another element in this. We have to understand that speaking last week, we had very rich shooting. There are 2 distinct levels in everything. We said in the light, everything, there's 2 distinct levels. There is the Hitzonius, which means that which works in a certain system, in a certain form, and is based on the worldly reality. And then there is the primary reality, the truth as it is in itself, being demonstrated in the light, and demonstrated in the nefesh, and so forth. As a person grows up, I pointed out this is a phenomenal thing. The most painful state in a person's mind is a person who does not know who his parents are. A person does not know who his parents are.
How much more? They told Yakir told me.
Because that person cannot justify his being in the world. How do I come here? One of the most horrific things that the scientists invented is that everything made itself. If it made itself, you have no responsibility to anything else. No responsibility to the world, you have no responsibility to anything. And we see this. Unfortunately, we have so many street kids who run around, they know who their parents are. They have no stake in the world. They don't care what happens in the world. Literally. What happens in the world? They don't care what happens to them. They have no stake in anything. Put them in jail, put them in jail. They have no significance. Because they have no sense of reality in their own existence. They are here by accident. And what they teach and they promote this idea, it's criminal, really, it's criminal. But that's maybe should put straighten out. So, growing up in a normal home, God's help, in a normal home, even though the cradle, the song is something different than Torah is the best cradle. Still, it gives the kid a sense of solidity. I'm here for real. And once he senses that he's for real, this triggers already a sense. Where does the reality come from? What is really the reality? And that enables him to ultimately reach into his Emunah, into his nefesh, into the godly reality. Because reality essentially is godly. This is why I don't want to paint when somebody does not have that fundamental basis for his life, he really cannot reach into his nefesh.
Can be helped though?
Everything can be helped. He's alive, he has seichel. But it's I say, okay, enough said. So I'm saying, all of these things, all of these mashalim, it's a mashal. It's not a mashal you scratch out from left field. It's a replica. It's a reflection of the Ayin, because everything in the world was created reflecting the way things are almighty. And this is how the nefesh is mislabish in the goof. The nefesh is mislabish in the goof, to the extent that the goof has intelligence. He is a conduit for intelligence. Mainly he feels he's alive. He feels pain and pleasant. That's part of that's through the nervous system. But intelligence, that's nothing to do with the goof at all. It is because there is a sense of the fundamental reality. Fundamental reality includes everything. Everybody, everything. Like we said, the sunlight and daylight, again, it's like a motion. It's a certain level, but it's a reflection of the daylight. Is not that it facilitates vision. Until that you see, you relate to the truth of the world itself. That's daylight. You see it because it's real. Because it's there, not because you see it, because there's light reflecting for the object. Okay, I felt this would be important to understand, to say, all these mishalim in Chassidus, in Torah, these are not mishalim from left field. These are mishalim reflective, because this is it's a mashal for that for which it is, for where it is a derivative.
I just missed what you said about the light. Sorry. What did you say about, how did you tie it into the light from the daylight? What was the point you just made?
I explained that daylight is not a worldly phenomenon. In the world there has to be a give and take, there has to be a cause and effect. The effect of daylight is not by the eye hitting an object. It's not by encounter. I heard the whole course of this.
No, I just wanted to know what the point you made just now. About you brought in light.
That ultimately, just like we have intelligence, because we have the experience of daylight. We have something. We experience something which is higher than our goof.
That's like another trigger, you're saying?
Everything is a trigger, but we experience it. As a result of our experience, then we can talk about elokus. We can talk even about atzmos. Atzmos, what are you talking about? Something that doesn't exist in the world. We can talk about it. Because we can relate through all the various things that we experience a sense of reality itself. A sense of reality, not a result of a give and take, a result of cause and effect. Like we point out, the first day of creation, Hashem created light, and this is one of the things that the quasi-intellectual says, what kind of light was it? There's no sun. This is one of the big things. I don't know if you're familiar with this. This country was built on Emunah. On Emunah in the Beis and in the Bible. And there was a whole court case because they were teaching. They were teaching originally in the public schools. They taught creation, and then came a whole fight. They should stop teaching creation. They should teach evolution. And they were in court. There were whole debates about this. And the evolutionists came and said, okay, let's open the Bible. And it says there was light the first day. When was the sun created? Turn a few pages, it's on the fourth day. What kind of light was this? Where did this light come from? This argument, can you believe it? It's an argument of the uninformed, of the so to speak, of the superficial view. But the point is, this argument is what brought evolution into the schools.
What was the argument? That it didn't make sense, or the
yeah, this is fantasy. Makes sense of it.
Made perfect sense from their point.
Excuse me?
The argument made perfect sense from their point of view. What else did they think? How can you have a light without a source?
It made sense from their point of view when they attribute the value to their question as a moment of refutation.
Right.
But if you know that this is Torah from the Meibushin, then you approach it differently and you find explanation.
I never heard this point before about that trial, Rabbi Paltiel. That's astonishing.
It was in the court. It was in the courts.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Another question. We're talking about the Nakuda, what's it called? The Shima. But before we talked about that, we talked about Chachma being. Is the Rishima essentially this is the Indian of Chachma?
No, Rishima is higher than Chachma. Rishima, they said Rishima is what we have in the form of Emunah, which is higher than Chachma. Chachma is compared to Re'iyah. We all know Re'iyah is much the same. But one thing in Re'iyah, you can close your eyes and not see. Emunah, you cannot close your eyes to. As much as you try. I'm sorry? Emunah comes to us through Chochmah, but it comes to us through Chochmah through what's called Koitza Shel Yudah, and the element in Chochmah that we don't really absorb, don't really relate to, understand. In sight, we have the object. And we say almost to the point where you can actually explain sight by deflected light, but then there's an element that gives you something completely different. And in order for us to be able to relate to Chochmah, since Chochmah does not have any internal substantiation like Bina, an argument, in order for us to be able to accept Chochmah, we have to have first and foremost Emunah. And I explained many times. We explained, this is the makif within the Chochmah. We explained that Chochmah, the deepest principle of Chochmah is not that this is true, but that there is such a thing as truth. There is such a thing as truth. What is it? This is beyond Chokhmah. This is the neshama element itself. From our vantage point, from our goof perspective, that's the best we can say about it, because we don't understand what it is.
In the Maimer, he talks about how the tzimtzum is a concealment of a panemius ha'ar. But when we explained it in the class, we said that it was like the concealment of the hispashtus ha'ar. In other words, the entire hispashtus was concealed. How does hispashtus coincide with panemius?
The hispashtus comes from the panemius. So you can conceal the hispashtus, but you cannot conceal the panemius. The rishima is the ration. Let me explain it. Project this in Seichel. You have a light that has no source. You can see without any explanation. How can you see? We explain that seeing experience gives you the ultimate message of seeing. You see it because it's true, not because I see it. There's no physical interaction. No explanation how I see it. I don't have to see it, because the truth you see. This type of sight, this type of experience that does not have what's called kalim in the world, has no worldly kalim, has no worldly explanation for it. This leaves a mark, indelible, because this takes you above world. This is called the Rishima. Even if you take away all the revelations and all that, that leaves a mark of indelible. Yes, there is a truth. I don't know what it is, but there is a truth. This is called the Rishima.
That is the point of Chokhmah, or that is the main point of Chokhmah?
This is the source of Chokhmah. This is what's called the Exodus Koyse Shel Yud.
The words here, it says, "V'kdeishi ha'arazu
Tzarech liyos tzimtzum otzim b'ayin seif baruch hu she'is'alim ha'panemius." That the panemius is concealed. She'is'alim ha'panemius shel ha'or. But yeah, we're saying the panemius can never be concealed. It's the nakuda is the rishima is the source.
No. The salmos of panemius means that Yehuda's question, Yehuda says that that what happened to Tzimtzum, that the Pnimius was Nisalim. But we just said that the Pnimius can't be Nisalim. Only the Chitzenius can be Nisalim. The Hispashtus. Doesn't say Chitzenius, it says Hispashtus. You have an answer?
There's a Be'emes.
Huh?
The next two lines is a Be'emes.
Okay, well let me just, the answer is right there, but if you have a difficulty.
Speak about Tzimtzum, he said that it was a silica art.
What? Silica.
Silica means the silica. Hispashtus was there?
Hispashtus was there. Most mean that it's silica pnimius. Like we just finished saying, pnimius means that it's there without an explanation, without being brought there, without hamshach. That is hispashtus oer. This hispashtus brings the pnimius into through the hispashtus. Why is there this hispashtus? Because of the pnimius, because of the fundamental reality of it. That's called hispashtus oer. Like we say, you have your home, and you are all over the home. Why? Is it the pnimius or the chitzenius?
Panemius.
The pnimius. But you're all over the place.
But it's you who's all
Because this hispashtus represents the pnimius. These hispashtus can be withdrawn. But the pnimius element that it represents, that cannot be. because it's Mila Mihagbola. That cannot be removed. So this hispashus is the hispashus of the Pneumius. But Pneumius is not hispashus. That's right. This hispashus does not lend itself into worldly container. This is why the light, Tzeniva B'Yem Rishon, had to be removed, because it did away with the world. It was only his pashtus. How did it conflict with the world? It was oir. And there was oir and there was night, right? So what's wrong with it? This oil does away with it because it's a hispashus of the Pneumius. It's the oil that reveals the fact that Atzmos is here. This is Meibus's creation. This is not a world. So there's no world. Okay. The Rebbe once spoke in a sikha, and he said people were asking a whole bunch of questions on the Rashi. The Rebbe encouraged people to ask questions on Rashi, on the Rashi sikha. And Rashi, so the Rebbe said, after people started asking, and there was piles and piles and piles of questions, and the Rebbe would attend to the questions by bringing. Then he said, the questions reveal a question without the attempt of finding the answer. When you have a question, you have no idea the benefit you would get by making an attempt to find the answer.
Say it again. If you have a question, then there would be more benefit rather than ask the question and try to find the answer.
No. The benefit that you would get by attempting to find the answer, to explain it to yourself, is enormous. Even though it may not be clear, you still would need clarification. But any attempt to find the answer will bring you closer to the Inyan. Sholei b'yerech. To ask a question is extremely easy, even an insightful question. But just encourage you, if you go in and try to like you see, where is the question, where is the answer, where is the question end and the answer begins, it's a different world, a different mode of learning.
And that can be sensed on the way the question is asked.
So that reflects the way the question is asked. But the way the question is asked shows that you're looking for, that you're interested in the answer. You're not really interested in the question, you're interested in the answer. But for yourself,
look for the answer.
You look for the answer. Think into it and see what am I missing?
Yeah, but the Rebbe was complaining that the question we could see there's no attempt to find an answer. The big one.
Right. Because they relied on the answer. They wrote to the Rebbe. How did the Rebbe tell? How can the Rebbe tell?
How can you see in a question if it means to, if it does not have? I'm just trying to. Is there a way to see in a question itself if there's an attempt for an answer?
Yes, I'll tell you what. Some questions the answer is very, very remote, very difficult. Some questions the answer is right there on the surface. If you would only attempt to look into it, you would see that you're contradicting yourself sometimes. It's a question. So it's extremely helpful if you really get in under the surface, and there could be a question. There's no question about it, and there's more clarification. It's always in line, but it's completely different. Completely different. If you struggled for it first.
Shabbos should be a little bit longer. Shabbos should be a little bit longer. Shabbos.
a long time to come to it.
By Har Sinai, by Maimon Har Sinai. So after Maimon Har Sinai, the Eden were completely taken aback, and they came to Moshe and said, "You go, you tell us." The Rebbe said, "We cannot go." No, this is something else. No, later on, when Eden, when there was the Sanhedrin, what? When Moshe had been put together the Sanhedrin, and he said, "Okay, select people, I'll make us a Sanhedrin." So Eden were all too anxious, all too happy to set up a Sanhedrin instead of going directly to Moshe. Rashi points out, and Moshe reprimanded them about this. What was reprimanded? Then Rashi says, "Wasn't it better for you to learn from me directly? Sheyitgaleh oleho. Than learn from my Talmidim, that to whom it was all imparted directly." That's what she said. Because I suffered for it, which means I worked hard to get it. It's a completely different resource than somebody who's got a question has an answer. So Nitza'arti Oleho is an important ingredient in getting to the final element of truth. You are all Nitza'arti Oleho because I'm exhausting you.
People ask the question in court.
Rabbi Paltiel, do you think we're getting the Rishimo as you wish?
I'm sorry, again?
Do you think that we are getting this union of the Rishimo as you wish us to get it?
I'm sure with neighbors if you do. I cannot tell until questions begin to come up. Sometimes the questions are showing positive. Sometimes the questions are missing the mark. But it's okay. I'd rather have the questions than not have it, than not know where we are. Baruch Hashem. I think, as I said, last week we really, I think, Wednesday, Thursday, and Thursday evening, and Friday was all the same center of discussion. All right, fine. Baruch Hashem. All right. As usually, we have to get into the text, and we have to go back a few lines. But this will confirm what we have discussed in the last few shurim, and particularly this morning. Okay, let's start from the line that begins with what sheyitgaleh. Okay, this is 7 lines from the top of Mem Hey.
7th line?
7th line. It's all repetition, but it would be nice to see inside. The Rishima is an akuda that includes the whole oil sheyitgaleh b'chol ha'ishtalshelus. That will ultimately be surface in the whole ishtalshelus. There is no Bezamelish Blei Chidush, so I have to explain what does it mean sheyitgaleh b'chol ha'ishtalshelus. What will be nizgaleh in the ishtalshelus? And here's a very clear and simple message of this. A human being consists of 613 different parts, limbs, koiches. The high koiches, lower koiches. Starting from the brain, which has chokhmah. And everything else is a derivative of that chokhmah. Nothing in a human being acts independently. And it's also a derivative of the chokhmah. Now, this whole human being, his hands, his feet, his mouth, his nose, his eyes, his ears, his hair, all that is really representative of what a human being is. And it's all contained in the chokhmah. Or even higher, like we say in the Kodesh Yud, in the Emunah. This is a little bit more difficult to understand, but I have to, since I mentioned Emunah, I have to point out the real human being is not what he is unto himself. The human being is what he is in terms of his mission being in the world. That's what we say, to give a name of a child when he gets born. And in terms of his mission, which is the real person, he needs everything. He has chokhmah, he has feet in his mouth, he needs everything. All of that is a representative of what the true human being is. So this is the Nekudas on Shima, which is the Shima of the Ayin Seif. And it contains everything that all the arouse, all the phenomenon of all the elements that will sheyitgaleh, will surface to Seder Hishtalshelus, all the way down to Seder Hishtalshelus into our world. Because everything in Seder Hishtalshelus ultimately is the complement of the Mebish's will to intend to create in the world.
Comparing it to Chokhmah? I'm sorry.
What?
Were you comparing it to Chokhmah? You said that everything derives from Chokhmah, from the human being?
Everything derives from Chokhmah, the human being, and Chokhmah derives from the Emunah, from the Nekuda. Just like the world comes from Nekudas Harshim. What's the difference between Chokhmah and Nekuda and Emunah and Nekudas Harshim and everything? The difference is, as we said, the Chokhmah is already mislabish in the Guf. To whatever the extent it's mislabish, there's a brain. The Emunah is not mislabish in anything. The Emunah remains an neshama element in the human being. This is the life element itself. This is why that cannot be affected. That is steadfast. That does not change. Everything that a person understands in his chokhmah, Sabi bil tzaddik makom. A person can be very wise and can be acting very stupidly, but he cannot act without life. He's alive. You cannot eliminate life for a moment and then come back to life. Right? That doesn't work.
Rabbi Paltiel?
Yeah.
So the Emunah is this Rishima.
Right.
What is it the Rishima of at the person level?
Of the neshama.
Of the neshama. The neshama is the Ayin Seif Leaving Tzimtzum.
Right.
And this is the mitzvah.
Relative to the person.
Mitzvah same, or it's his pashtus is mitzvah same, and this produces the Rishima.
Right.
Is that accurate what I just said?
All right, I was distracted. What is it? I was distracted.
I'm sorry, right, so that was okay, that characterization?
Repeat it again.
The neshama is mitzamtzem, or its hispashtus is mitzamtzem, and this leaves the reshimu of Emunah.
Right, because the neshama is mislabish in the guf. That hislapshus is enormous timtum.
But the reshimu, this is before the guf. This is the Emunah is before it. You just said it's not mislabish in the guf.
That's right. That's why the only thing we have from the neshama after hislapshus is this reshim, is this emunah.
So just like in the Ayin Seif, the Mila, there's no such relevant thing as to talk about Rishimu. In the Shama itself, Emunah is not a separate thing in the Shama. The Shama.
Well, it is a separate thing.
Emunah.
It is a separate thing. It's after the tzimtzum. After the neshama is mislabish in the guf. That's all that remains of the neshama in the guf.
But before the Neshama is mislavish, before it's mitzantzim, the Neshama itself doesn't need Emunah.
The neshama is the emunah, is the truth of Elokus. Is
the truth, okay.
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 We want Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now, we don't want to wait, we want Mashiach. Have a good day.
Have a great day.
la